This is an open meeting, so all panelists who have access to the chat panel, please only use chat for technical issues related to the video conferencing. The commission will proceed by opening the agenda of items, having the applicant or the representative present the project, or if previously opened in a public meeting, they will provide a brief summary of the project. The commission will follow with questions, and then we open it up to the public for questions and comments. At this point, if you wish to participate, you will raise your hand and your microphone will be unmuted for you to participate. Due to the limitations of the platform, attendees that are accessing the meeting via the telephone number at the top of the agenda will only be able to listen to the proceedings and will not be able to contribute. Please access the video conference with a link on the agenda, even if you do not have a webcam to participate. We'll do a roll call. Eric, present?
Present.
Margaret?
Present.
Ann? Marilyn? Jim?
I'm here.
And Peter. Okay. Our first item is a continuation of a new public hearing on the Water Department Stonybrook Inflow Restoration Project, 334-1747. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 141, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, the Wetlands Not Zoning Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 10th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. VI webinar on the Notice of Intent application of the Town of Westford Water Department for seasonal low flow releases to improve in-stream flow of Stonybrook in accordance with the Stonybrook Flow Restoration Project at Appet Mill Dam at the outlet of Forge Pond. Okay, so we can open up with this. Anybody there?
Hello, this is Mark Warren from the Westford Water Department.
Great.
And also
Okay.
Bob Hartzell from Comprehensive Environmental, representing the Westford Water Department.
Okay, Bob.
Okay, so it appears that my video is off right now. I don't have control over that, but as long as that's okay with you,
Yeah, the audio is fine. Okay, we have trouble off and on with videos. I'm on hold right now myself, so but you can, as long as we can hear you, you're fine. Okay.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure there was nothing on my end that I should have been doing.
No, you're good.
Before I launch into it, I guess I would just maybe quickly ask Mark Warren if he had any introductory words he wanted to say before I start, getting into the project presentation.
No, I guess just start with a brief description of the project in the event that folks don't, understand what's going on. How's that?
Yeah, sure. Yep, that was my plan. So basically, hopefully this will be a pretty easy one for the commission to review, because this is a continuation of a project that was just last year reviewed and approved, and it goes back actually an additional year before that. So this is really the third phase of the Stonybrook Flow Restoration Project. This project has been funded through a State Water Management Act grant since 2018. So the goal here is to improve the in-stream flow within the 45 square mile Stonybrook watershed. And this includes not just water bodies and infrastructure in Westford, but also upstream as well, starting at Spectacle Pond and then working its way through to Forge Pond and beyond into Stonybrook. So the first phase that was funded in 2018, just by brief background, was to get instrumentation put in and a number of dams and water bodies, with starting in Spectacle Pond and working its way through the system in the Stonybrook watershed. The instrumentation primarily consisted of pressure transducers and web-enabled infrastructure that lets us get real-time data for flow and other metrics, water level and so on within the water body. It also lets us see things like weather forecasts, and it provides alerts when water level is too low, and maybe that's a risk to downstream habitat, or maybe too high, and that might cause erosive flows or put pressure on and put the dam at risk, for example. So the idea is to, we started off, we got this instrumentation that lets us better understand how these systems work. It also provided a side benefit of allowing seasonal winter drawdown at Forge Pond to be done in a way that we had a better understanding of when we might be outside of the permit required flow rates, for example. So it's more transparent tool for decision support. Last year, in the summer of 2019, that was the last permit that got authorized through the commission. That allowed for empirical testing of low flow releases. So now that we have this information from this real-time data, the idea was to, when the water level was relatively low and when Stonybrook was becoming close to the level where it would be stressed for flow, for in-stream habitat, we would release water in small amounts and basically take the edge off and try to reduce the frequency with which Stonybrook would actually get into a bad situation because of low flows. So that empirical testing was approved. It went through state MESA review and got a no-take determination on that. And so now we're back this year based on the success of those low flow releases last summer to get in order of conditions, hopefully, for a more continued, ongoing process of allowing these low flow releases to help maintain healthy flow within the brook. So it's really, it's a two-part project. There is a separate notice of intent that was filed and had a hearing last week in Littleton. That was a two-part project that involved not just low flow releases, but also permitting for doing seasonal drawdown at Spectacle Pond, which had been done for quite a few years without any permit, believe it or not. So it's good that that's now getting on board and being done the right way. So that further allows there to be, consistency and coordination between all these bodies of water that are part of the flow network for Stonybrook. So basically, the timing for the project, when these low flow releases would take place is in accordance with last year's no-take determination from Natural Heritage and the very similar, almost identical letter that was received for this project. And that would require these low flow releases to take place only during the active period for the Blandings turtle, which is between April 16 and October 14 each year. The mechanics for how we would do the low flow releases, again, exactly the same as what was done last summer. So we have, if someone has control over that, yeah, there you go, right there. That's exactly the photo on top. So on the back right of the top photo, you can see the timber sluice gates that allow water to flow out of the outlet channel from Forge Pond and into the way that goes towards the Abbott Mill building. The photo at the bottom shows where the secondary outlet is just a little bit downstream of the sluice gates on top. There's a fairly modern secondary outlet there with aluminum stop logs, different heights, everything from 18 inches, a foot, 6 inches, and then one that's perforated that allows for low flows. So that gives us pretty good finesse, but the combination of how much we lift the sluice gates and how many stop logs we pull out and what height stop log we pull out, that really regulates the flow. So that's the mechanism for allowing water to be released. And again, what we're trying to do here, if you go to, I believe, the figure, let's see. Well, I'm having a little trouble here navigating, but in any event, there we go, sorry. The difficulties of doing this online. So what this figure tries to show, blue polygon there is representing the dam. And there are blue lines to the left of that, which represent high flows and then a low flow range that's been determined, the point at which recreation would be impaired within Forge Pond. So the idea is that we want to allow low flow releases, but not to the point where it's going to be a problem within the lake and people are running their boats, on dry land and that kind of thing. So the system we have alerts us to when the flow is low enough within Stonybrook that we want to do a release, but it also lets us know when the water level in Forge Pond would become so low that we don't want to release any more water. So that's essentially the same thing that we did last summer during the empirical testing. And that's really the project in a nutshell. I'm not sure what more to say. I see there's a question there from Jim.
Jim?
When those releases are done,
what is it exactly that triggers that? It's not the downstream channel. It's some other part of Stonybrook down further, like down by Depot Street or Brookside Ave, one of those further downstream dams. Is that what you look at? And when you see those get too shallow or too high in temperature, you add water?
No, we've actually got instrumentation just, alongside the Abbott Mill building that informed us about the flow conditions with Stonybrook at that point. So, and there are other locations downstream as well, but that's really the trigger that tells us when the in-stream habitat in that part of the channel is getting, essentially you've got a channel here that's very much dependent on the dam and what's going on at the dam to maintain its in-stream flow. So that upstream end is really sort of the canary in the coal mine that tells us when. So if you can imagine, if during refill at the end of the winter, when Forge Pond is being brought back up to its normal level, if you just threw all the stop logs back in and didn't allow any flow out, that stream would go dry, and you would see that first and most dramatically right downstream of the dam. So that's where the instrumentation is that's giving us an alert as to when things are getting low. As you go down the system.
So the part of the channel directly downstream from the dam is sort of the indicator for the rest of the waterway. It's the worst
Yes, and
shows up right downstream of the dam. The worst conditions show up there.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of your question, the last few words.
Do the absolute worst conditions in Stonybrook show up literally just downstream of the dam, or do they occur elsewhere down the waterway?
Well, for our purposes, there's two reasons why we use the spot that's been instrumented. One is that because it's closest to the dam, the effects of the dam are strongest there. As you move downstream, there's more opportunity for it to pick up flow, just base flow from groundwater, as it continues its way downstream. So I can't say that there wouldn't be reasons in some of the other impounded areas and dams where things might periodically be worse for one reason or another, but we've got the channel geometry and the modeling set up so that we understand the relationship between flow and level at that point. So that's what we're using.
Okay, thank you.
So as I mentioned, we've received our MISA note take letter. It really just, gives us a window, seasonal window to operate within. This project, which I forgot to mention up front, is being done as an ecological restoration limited project. And this is it's entirely discretionary at-will project. Nobody's forcing anyone to do this. The intention here is entirely because we have the infrastructure and the information now to do a better job protecting downstream flow and downstream habitat. And that's the intention. So happy to take any questions.
Any other questions from the commission?
I don't have any.
Questions from the audience on this?
Well, I have a couple questions, Peter.
Okay,
Carol. Bob, can you just explain a couple of other things? One, I just wanted to know, just partly for a permitting process, is there anything that we need to be concerned about one way or another as far as the condition of the dam? Does this sit with Office of Dam Safety in good condition, or is there any issues of maintenance or anything like that the instrumentation would have trouble, or you might not be able to manage the stop logs?
No, to date, I mean, the stop logs that we pull to release or impede flow, those are actually in really good shape. The dam, the secondary outlet was built, I want to say it was 1988 or 1989. I'm forgetting the exact year, but it's relatively modern and it's nice. It's a nicely fabricated aluminum stop log structure. It's not, as nice as some of the high-end automatic ones where you can press a button and release water, but it's, as far as these things go, it's not like it was built back in the Industrial Revolution with wooden, stop logs. It's pretty nice structure. With regard to the condition of the dam itself, part of the permitting process is to send a review letter into the Massachusetts Office of Dam Safety for their review. And we've had to go that route. Well, I'm using a broad sense of we there for the projects that have been permitted under this Stonybrook restoration project, and also for the permitting for the Forge Pond drawdown. They've received the same review letter, and they've always had no comment and approved, the project to go forward with no risk to safety or structural issues at the dam.
Okay, and then, so you mentioned that Littleton is also in the review of this, and you had a hearing last week. Did you have any questions, or did they ask for any further information that you're going to be providing before they issue an order?
They were not able to issue an order, but they did close the hearing. The reason that it wasn't able to be formally done last week was because at that point we were still waiting on the DP file number, which has since been issued and you should have by now. We were also pending. We were given a verbal that the MISA no-take letter was coming, but they weren't able to get it out in time for that Littleton hearing. But now that both of those are in hand, they basically said you don't have to show up to the next hearing. Well, as long as we have those things in hand, we'll just close it and you're done. So.
Okay, and then could you just explain a little bit more about the portal? So if we issue an order of conditions, and just so you know our process, we don't typically do it the same night of the hearing because I need to draft it after we've taken all the information. But how does it work as far as the dashboard? Like, does the town have the ability now to be able to, I know Mark obviously would have the right to be able to monitor it, but if the commission who's issuing the permit and wanted to check on anything, we're right now just a guest to it.
Yep, absolutely. Anyone, yourself, anyone on the commission, and frankly, anyone at town who's interested, we could simply just set you up with, all it is just it's a password enabled access, and we just get you one of those, and from then on, you just save it to your desktop and it'll be there. It's kind of cool. You can play around with it. You can see blocks of periods of time. If something dramatic happens, like a nor'easter comes up, you can see how that affects flow rate and water level. Most of the time, it's pretty boring to look at because it looks like pretty full in front of you. But you learn to play around with it so that you're not just looking at it for that 12-hour period. You can look at it for a 2-week period, a week period, a much longer chunk of time, see how things are responding to rain events. So I would say it's the easiest thing in the world to do it. So if you want it, we'll just shoot me an email and we'll get you set up, and we can do the same for anyone else on the commission.
All right, well, I'm just thinking we might just have a condition that says something along the lines of, that you'll provide us with a portal, and something that, this would be ongoing for the duration of the project if there's other members who need it or something.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I didn't have any other questions.
Okay, are there any questions from the
Oh,
audience?
actually, I did have one more. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Bob, I think you also said you applied for MIPA. Is that true? Not just MISA, but for MIPA?
Oh, no, I said MISA is another term for natural heritage rare species review.
No, that's okay. But I thought you also applied for a MIPA grant. You didn't have to. This doesn't fall under that at all. I thought your application had something to do that.
No, this was a Water Management Act grant.
Okay, all right. I'll double check the application. If I have a question on, I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Okay, Carol, you done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the audience on this application? I don't see any hand raised. So will you be able to do an order for the next meeting, Carol?
I think so. We haven't had an ecological restoration project, so I think it should be pretty straightforward. But if anybody has thoughts that they want to include that I haven't gotten from your discussion tonight, just shoot me an email with something.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Carol, what you just said triggered. I think I now understand your question better about MIPA. Because it's an ecological restoration limited project, it has to be noticed in the MIPA environmental monitor. It's not a MIPA filing per se, but it does require just that it gets publicly noticed there, which it was.
Okay, that helps me. Thank you.
Okay, Jim?
in the orders, Carol, we probably ought to include something like that if the commission receives information from abutters on Forge Pond on the Westford side, that there's problems as a result of the releases, let's say an area of shallow water that we weren't aware of that now suddenly becomes dry land. We might be able to, we would become aware of that, we would be able to stop these releases until we figure out what's going on, whether there was an excessive amount of water release or whether it was just an unknown shallow area or whatever.
Okay, do you think that should be an ongoing condition that continues with a certificate of compliance, which, or do you want it to be the first few years as people are kind of getting underway?
The first few sounds like it'd be fine to me.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So just with regard to that, there is, oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm mixing up my project here with the one that was filed in Littleton that had a separate well hotline related to Spectacle Pond for their seasonal drawdown. But
Not the seasonal stuff, just the low water release in the summertime. I mean, you have an idea of what the low water level is in the pond where you would stop this so that it doesn't impact any of the resources, including recreation. But we may suddenly get a call or a bunch of calls from people. What's going on? The water level dropped tremendously. We have now this, you know, I can't walk to the water. If we see something like that because of an unknown underwater structure or something, we want to be able to stop the activity until we figure out what's going on.
yeah, fair enough. And I mean, to that point, it actually just came up last week with the level being, you know, pretty high, relatively speaking, that, you know, there are a few obstacles within the lake over on the, I guess we'll call it the on the Mattawanakee end, where it's a couple of rocks where if you're over there and you kind of get a ski boat that's going a little too fast, a little too close to the shoreline, you can get a bad surprise from some of those rocks. And I don't know if something shifted, but somebody did send an email around to the group saying that, you know, they, you know, broke their propeller. So that kind of thing, as we get down lower, you know, we've got a system where we will put up like buoys with markers showing people where the low spots are. So hopefully boaters can avoid them. But yeah, any kind of ability to have, you know, a point of contact so that all the information is out there and people know how to, you know, reach out on those topics, that's obviously a good idea.
So Bob, who is that going to be for Westford? Like, who would we be contacting? Mark Warren or who?
Yeah, Mark, if you're willing to be that point of contact, that makes sense to me. I mean, Corey Godfrey is on the Littleton side for Littleton Electric Light and Water.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I think we'd probably be more generic, like the water department, right, Mark?
Yeah, but ultimately it's going to be me.
Yeah, for now.
That's true.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we're good? Okay, so we'll continue this to our June 24th meeting. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And Peter, yes. Okay, thanks, guys.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. So I missed the open forum in the beginning. So does anybody from the commission have anything for open forum?
Carol, we're going to cover the Edwards property during discussion item.
We can bring it up under discussion. It's not on the agenda specifically, so maybe we could just we could do open forum after as well, Peter, if that's all right with you.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, why don't we do that? We'll wait since we don't have much on this. Okay, let's continue to our next agenda item, which is a continuation of a public hearing for Dooley, 60 Pollyanna Road.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Melissa Robbins from DeShane and Farrell on behalf of Robert Dooley at 16 Pollyanna Lane. I know that the board had opened this public hearing. We've continued it for a little bit amount of time, so I just want to give the board a little bit of background. This past winter, Mr. Dooley began construction of the small one-car garage, which you can see along the front of the property, almost on Pollyanna Lane. As he was building the structure, which is about 264 square feet, he was notified by the building department once it was almost complete that he needed a building permit for the structure since it was well over 100 square feet. And he also would need a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals to allow it to remain. And then he would also need relief from this commission since the structure is located within 88 feet of Nabnasa Lake. The reason we kept continuing your commission's hearing is because we wanted to make sure we got our zoning board relief first, so we didn't waste your commission's time. But I'm happy to report that at the last zoning board meeting, we did get the variance for the structure. You might notice a little change from this plan from the original application is that the covered patio, which was 12 by 10 in size, that was closer to the structure, has been removed. That was a condition of the Zoning Board of Appeals variance, so that has gone off of the structure. The board also fined us $1,000 for building the structure not in conformance with the Westford zoning bylaws. Just a little bit of background about the lot. You can see that it's quite small. It's about 6,838 square feet in size. Mr. Dooley has no parking on his own lot. He street parks at least along Pollyanna Lane or on that small area that you can see of pavement that's within that 20-foot right of way heading down to the beach. He built this garage so that he could get one car on his property. It's hard to tell, but this garage is actually, there's a fence that runs along the front of his property that it doesn't look like it on this plan, but if you go out there in reality, the fence looks like it's along Pollyanna Lane. And then this garage is almost against that vinyl fence. So it's almost as far off his property as it possibly can go. You can see I've had the engineer add the setback line from the retaining wall to Nabnasa Lake. So it's 88 feet to the closest corner from the Nabnasa Lake retaining wall to this garage. The land that the garage is on was previously disturbed. It was landscaped with grass, and it was primarily used as storage for children's play toys and other outside equipment that was tucked in the corner of the property. We're here tonight asking for relief for a request for determination. I believe that this can be issued by the board because it is minor in nature and it is being developed on land that's previously developed and previously disturbed. So we're requesting the determination from the commission. I'm happy to answer any questions the commission might have. For some odd reason, Matt Salem can tell you that I have some ridiculous feedback when other board members start talking. So I'm going to mute myself until the board has commission questions, and then I'll unmute myself.
Questions from the commission? No, nothing? Questions from the audience on this?
I have a question,
Okay,
Peter. Melissa, is there a driveway or pavement that either was added to access the garage, or is it gravel? I don't know what the access to the garage is.
No, there was no added, we're not going to add material to access the garage. I think there's some gravel there that's from along the roadway, but we're not proposing to add any pavement or anything to access the garage.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions from the audience on this application? Okay, seeing none, can we do this as a negative determination?
Okay.
Or do you want any conditions, Carol?
It's pretty flat where the garage is located. I don't really think there's any issues from an erosion standpoint. I guess, Melissa, I'm not 100% clear. So did he already remove the covered patio, or does that still have to happen?
No, that still has to happen. After we get relief from this commission, now we can go file for our building permit from Mr. Fontaine, who's waiting for the commission and the zoning board's relief, and then we can do a demolition and a construction permit at the same time.
Okay, so Peter, I would probably just include a condition that the patio will be removed as described.
Okay, so can I have a motion for a conditional negative?
So moved.
All in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Margaret,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Peter, yes. Okay, motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Tim,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Margaret,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Peter, yes. Okay, thanks, Melissa.
Thank you very much, members of the commission. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is a continuation of a public hearing for Franklin, 31 Bridge Street. Chris, I believe you're there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Carol, you want to give us an update? Have you been out there?
I've driven by, I haven't met with Chris. I did send him an email asking for an update and we did not connect on that. So maybe he can respond to the email, which was asking about progress, both in removal of the debris and progress on putting together the plan that was required in the enforcement order. And I guess I just remind everyone that we were supposed to have that plan, Chris, back in March. So.
Yeah, I finally I finally nailed down the asphalt guys and with their plan for where they would like it, all the rest. It looks like they're going to move some trucks out of between the house and the block building, and they're going to carve out a section there and put the dump asphalt. We removed a whole bunch of railroad ties. We still have some more. As we got into it, we got rid of $400 or $500 worth of railroad ties. I had somebody take them away, and we got a bunch. We got some tires out, but as we dug out, we've got more tires to go. We pulled out a bunch of stuff, but no one's had any real extra money to get rid of some of the debris. So we've got a pile of debris at the across from Howard's house, whatever. I don't know if that's north, south, east, or west. And we're just waiting. I'm waiting for enough money to come in to clear that up, because a lot of that is dirt, asphalt, which the asphalt guy will get rid of, and stumps and whatever. I don't know who dumped those there. We're making some progress. We haven't, it's been slow going, much more slow going than I thought. Hopefully now that things are starting to open up, I'll be able to get some people out there to have after it. But it's been, the other problem is the limitation of funds. I have taken a beating in the monetary end of things over the last 3 months.
Okay, but will you be able to get us that plan by our next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get a plan to Carol. Like I said, I yesterday or the day before, I saw your email, Carol. I'm sorry I didn't respond, but I finally got the owner of the asphalt company to stake out where, essentially go where he wanted to. I said, where do you want it to be? He said, he wanted a couple spots. He said, no. And then we finally came to a spot where it'll be essentially between the house and the building. It won't be in the parking lot, but where the water tank is. And nothing's going to, there won't be any of that asphalt debris dumped over there. He's agreed to that.
Okay, what about all the sand mixture that's on the side of the house? How's he going to contain that?
That's going to stay. We're hoping to leave it there for the time being. We'll probably have to, if I put bins in, that's going to really impede movement in that area. So if I have to talk to you at another time, I guess I could probably have them put sand up by the water tank in that area where we have the pile of debris that we're looking to get rid of. But that's not, I guess you could say, as hazardous as the leftover asphalt. But that is a fairly active area in that spot. So I don't, bins are kind of out of the question, because the slope, the house sits up probably 4 feet off the road, and there's an embankment and all the rest up there. I think
Well, I think part of the concern, or I think part of what we were getting after is that we're trying to control the amount of flood storage lost. And if
Right.
there's no way to demarcate where things can be stored or dumped, there's no way to control that because it's fluid. And that's where it kind of got out of control. Well, not kind of, it got out of control.
Well, we're just trying to use the, up by the water tank, or the abandoned water tank. We have that storage, what used to be the fire pump house building. We're looking to try to use that in some fashion. But right now, we're not even near, there's nothing being dumped in there at this point. It's all, we're trying to bring it closer to downstream further from that area. So
Yeah, I think if you think that's where you're going to move the sand and that's where they're going to maneuver it and, come and take it from, that's at least a contained area, not really out of the floodplain totally. I don't know if that's a concern at all for the commission in terms of the containment, but so you still need to get rid of the stuff that's in there. And I guess, what about the other tenant that's on that, I'm going to say that side closest to North Main Street, that end of your property where there was a lot of stuff that was in the woods, and we had talked about having that removed so that, we were hoping to have that done before the leaves came out. It was easier to...
The only thing that's really left there is that car frame with the bump, the chrome bumper that hasn't rusted away. But the frame is the only thing. We pulled out a bunch of that stuff. Now, just at this point, I think it's pretty much set, ready to put up some barriers and reseed. And like I said, the only thing in there is the car frame that's left there. We have to get into some of the water to get some of the breaks and stuff that were in there before, because I didn't do that earlier. But pretty much that's all been attended to. That fairly clean. Go ahead.
So it sounds like you need to get us a plan to start moving that second phase into compliance.
All right.
And then how about, we can't issue an order of conditions still without a file number. So where are you with that?
I sent something off a couple of weeks ago. I went down and got the Printing Solutions got a color copy, a larger copy of the plan I submitted to you folks back in, I think, January or February. It had to be January. So, and I sent that off to Wilmington. So, I haven't seen anything, but again, I haven't been looking for it. I just figured
we look for it. There's no file number, so. Okay.
I will, I'll follow up, I'll make another copy and send it off to them again. And how would I probably it was me not referencing it properly. Is there any kind of reference I have to put onto it?
We can talk about that offline if you want, but yeah.
Okay. I'll give you a call and then you can call me back and tell me what I need to put on the outside of the envelope so they get what they need.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll continue this to our June 24th meeting. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Yep.
Yes.
Eric? Ian?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Peter, yes. Okay, thanks, Chris.
Yep, thank you, Commission.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is the continuation of a public hearing, Westford Tennis Center for Littleton Road. They've requested a continuation without discussion to June 24th. Can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Jim? Eric?
Yes.
Ian? Margaret?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
And Peter, yes. Someone's on there. We're gonna have our next agenda item is a continuation of a public hearing for Stone Ridge Development, Greystone Pond. They've requested a continuation to July 8th. Can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Peter, yes. Okay, we're moving on to discussion items. Request for modification to treatment for long sought for pond, 3341236. I believe Doug Bell's there.
I am here, is just checking. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. Again, first I want to start by thanking Carol for getting us onto this agenda so quickly. This is a fairly dire situation on Long South Fork Pond, and why we're here is to request some immediate action on your part to approve treatment of a invasive weed that has been a problem now for 2 years on the lake. We had not really experienced problems. We've been doing really well, but last year we noticed a really substantial growth of a common flat pondweed, which when we talked to other lakes and talked to the state, they said it was invasive, seems to be a real problem last year everywhere. The hope was that this year it would maybe not be here again. Unfortunately, it's really clear from a survey, and this survey that Matt has just brought up in front of you is really doesn't really represent the extent of the problem from my recent own tours of the lake. I would suggest that anywhere along the shorelines you find very large clumps of this weed to the point that it's impeding swimming, and there is concern that it would potentially become a major problem. In the past with curly leaf pondweed and other weeds, since we've dealt with the milfoil really well on this lake, but we've had to do spot treatments and annual treatments for curly leaf pondweed. This year, we're requesting permission to treat this this weed using again the Solitude to perform the work in the spring. The reason for the immediacy is that treatments are more effective at the early stage of the weed, and there's a lot less bio load on the lake from the decaying debris. I do want to, in the packet that you were given, we had requested for up to 20 acres of treatment. Having been out on the lake recently, if it's possible, I'd like to ask to even increase that to 30 acres. Again, subject to the experts' opinions and what they wanted, what they feel is necessary. The survey that you're looking at was performed on May 7th. The last month, the growth of this weed has been, it's been really astronomical. So we have a existing orders of condition that do permit the use of the diquat. We've used this OOC over the years since 2004. I should point out that members of you were on the commission back then as well when we started this. But so congratulations on your 2 years of service. So if there's any questions, I can do the best I can to answer them.
Questions from the commission?
No.
No. Carol?
Nope. We've talked about this with the Healthy Lakes and Ponds Collaborative, and the same, yes, as Doug said, this was the report last year. They really were getting all kinds of complaints and didn't quite know, how they were going to deal with it. And they, as he said, hoped it would be better this year, but it hasn't been. So it's an issue. It is a native weed. That's the only difference, I think, with some of the others.
Any questions from the audience on this?
Peter, I think Jim had his hand raised.
Yep, Jim?
Yeah, the plan or the map shows that those 2 areas in the northeast as being the infestation areas. But did you say that it's also showing up everywhere on the shoreline?
Yeah, this is really underestimates the extent at this point. It's all along what would be the south shoreline into that cove that's along Route 40 as well. there's really very few places that you can run see in water that's 10 feet or less where you won't see large clumps of this weed. It grows in large patches. It's not like the milfoil in that it spreads by seed as opposed to by, it's not spreading by fragmentation, but it is spreading just simply because it's, and again, we've asked a lot of questions and have not been able to get solid answers as to why this is happening. These things happen. That's what we're told. But you have a letter from Solitude in the packet that also, I think, explains the nature of the problem and the need to treat it. And they have already as part of the process of annually, we renew our permit with the DEP just to be in place in case of need for spring treatments.
Any other questions? I've lost my video, you guys, so I can't see anybody who's raising their hand.
I got no questions, Peter.
No.
Okay. All right, so can I have a motion, to modify the treatment plan?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Peter? Yes. Okay, thanks, Doug. We're good.
But can I just confirm that up to 30 acres would be permitted here? Is that okay with this board?
Yeah, I think that's what we just voted on. You brought that
Okay.
up, so yeah.
Okay, I just
Yep.
wanted to make sure that because the packet, I had said 20, so thank you. And
Yep,
thank you
okay.
again.
So,
Appreciate it.
so Doug, I'll send you an email tomorrow, or if not tomorrow, because I'm in the field a lot by Friday or sometime, just to let you know, the commission's decision, which you've heard, but just you'll have it in writing then.
I'll reach out to Solitude tonight and have them get scheduled to get in there as soon as they can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, hang on. That's me, sorry, guys. All right, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Our next agenda item is a request for a certificate of compliance. Carol, which one of these can we do?
So the first one, Bardua 506 and Flynn 508 Groton Road. If you remember, we had a request for a partial certificate of compliance for 506 Groton Road when Mr. Bardua was purchasing that property, and it had been filed as just one application. So we had wanted to find out, why. We wanted to get a complete certificate of compliance issued and not leave it hanging. And I reached out to the other owner because it's separate buildings, even though it was filed as one application. So all the work was done. We have the as-bills. Everything's been satisfied for a while. But recommend issuing. And we don't have anything for 4 Littleton at the moment. They've continued their improvements under our friendly enforcement order, but they had not yet been able to complete the installation of the trench. They are working on getting someone to do that. And Tanzar 334 Groton Road. I did reach out to Steve Erickson to find out whether he was going to report anything tonight or be in present. He did explain that they were having trouble getting a contractor, but he thinks he has someone. I did have a contractor reach out to me last week asking for just some clarification on erosion control measures. And then Steve also asked, so they're not ready tonight, so they're asking for more time under their enforcement, both for Littleton and 334 Groton. But Steve also wanted some clarification on where the pole is located. Margaret, I don't know if you could, maybe if I bring a plan tomorrow or something, you could mark it up, show me where that pole was located, because I didn't get that when I did my site visit.
Okay, yeah, and what I'll do is, because I also took a picture, but I'll print that out, because that's got some of the stuff around it.
Okay. That'd be great, thank you. Did we lose Peter totally?
I think so.
Eric, do you want to take over?
So, which is the one that we can approve, Carol?
The first one, 506 and 508 Groton Road, which is file number 334933.
Can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second,
Jim,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Margaret,
yes.
Ann?
Yes.
I'm all in, so good on that one.
And are you fine with giving another 2 weeks to both 4 Littleton and 334 Groton?
Yes.
I'm fine with that. Can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second,
Jim,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Margaret,
yes.
Ann?
Yes.
I'm all in. Okay, that's good with that. What's next? Minutes?
I think the next item is just the, oh, actually, we had minutes and then we had the revised agenda item, which I can't even read. Matt, can you tell me what that was?
Marcus Lewis?
Oh, right. Yeah.
You want to do minutes?
Do the minutes first.
I sent out some of the revisions that Margaret had given me. I don't know if everyone had anything else.
Marilyn?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just got to look at this today. It's just 2 typos. So if you go to the minutes of May 13th on page 1, where it says open forum, almost the last word, you have lumbar as though it was in your back. And I think you mean lumber, Lumber. There's some lumber. Okay, so that was just one typo. And then there's another one on the minutes of May 27th, another small one. On 3 Elderberry Way on page 3, where the word has is mixed up. It has AHS. You just want to change it to has under Elderberry Way, first line. It just typos.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other changes or comments? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve these meeting minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second,
Jim? I guess we're all set. All those in favor, Jim? Marilyn?
Yes.
Margaret?
yes.
Ann?
Yes.
I'm good. So on to Marcus Lewis.
Sure. So we weren't completely sure when you voted to release Marcus from the contract, whether there was any further step that we needed to take. And town council, upon my inquiry to them, prepared a termination letter that I sent out to you, I think on Monday when I received it. And then just today, I believe I sent it to Marcus. I didn't hear anything back from Marcus, but the only question I really had on it was about whether there should be a deadline date on when to remove his stuff from that he's got stored there, and his letter to you all did indicate that he's looking to do that. So I'm thinking June 30th is adequate, but I don't know if anybody has a different opinion.
Well, today's the 10th, so that gives them what, another 21 days, 20 days?
Yeah, and I think if he needed more time, we could sort of figure it out. It's just the Park and Rec is also going to be starting up there, so we don't want to have a conflict with them trying to remove stuff.
We do want to have a deadline of some sort. We had a prior 10 years ago that left stuff in there and it became a big headache for the selectmen, actually.
June.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Mel.
so I'll have that available for you guys to sign tomorrow when we sign the certificate of compliance and the determination.
That's fine.
So we good with the end of the month?
Yes.
Good. Carol, is there anything else?
I think we just had a couple of open forum items. I had a couple anyway. I don't, and Jim, I'm sorry. Somebody else
Do we
speaking?
need to vote to approve the Marcus Lewis letter?
Sure,
Okay.
you might as well. I mean, you
Motion
did
to
vote to
accept
release
the,
him already.
motion to accept the letter
Will
from
we
Marcus
approve
Lewis?
the termination letter with the inclusion of a date for removal of his equipment at the end of the month?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, Jim? Jim, you in favor?
Yeah.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
I'm in favor. Good.
Okay.
So back to open forum.
I just had a couple of things, and then I think Jim might have wanted to also talk about the over on Hemlock Road. So my couple of things, one, I just wanted to let you know that I did have a person who's had some storm damage back, that now is going back a few weeks, but they'd only recently been able to get a contractor to assess, or they had 3 contractors, I guess, that came to assess it, but it's 10 Lakeshore Drive. So it's one of those really steep slopes. The tree came down and hit their stairs, and their dock snapped, and the only way they can take care of it, it's partly in the water and partly laying on those items, is to have a crane come in and take that snap tree, but they can't get to the snap tree without removing a couple of others. So they are leaving all the stumps, but I just wanted to make sure you knew about that one, since it's probably somewhat visible, at least from the lake.
That's
I've
fine.
been there, so I get it.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
I
fine.
know, you get it. Hartford Road, I just thought I'd let you know the planning board did vote to issue a preliminary, a decision on the preliminary subdivision, and they did prefer the open space development, and they have approved it for up to 8 lots. And then I also spoke with Highway today. Just wanted to let you know that they are the only, they've been in touch to do some work as part of their general permit that they have. They're going to be doing some milling and paving on North Main Street along Old Mill, sort of the Stonybrook area. So that's all I had.
Now, Jim, you had something on the Edwards parcel?
Yes, the last meeting, in the minutes that we just approved, we had a long discussion about dumping at the ends of Maple Road, Hemlock Road, and there's also some at the end of Woodbine Terrace on
And the
the
signage.
Edwards parcel over by Edwards Beach. And I think looking at our minutes, we agreed that Bill could put up one more sign on Hemlock, but he would remove the sign that was already there.
Right.
Well, as soon as we had our meeting last week, I went by there, and there were 2 more signs were added, and none were removed. So there were 3 signs and about 25 pamphlets. Since that time, one of the signs has disappeared. I don't know where it went. One of the signs has been pulled out of the ground and flopped over on the ground face down, and the pamphlets are all gone. And more pamphlets and more signs have shown up down at the northernmost tip of the property. It's out of control. I don't think any of these signs are put in by the town, are they, Carol?
No, I thought that we had agreed that, as you said, what the minutes said, he could put up a sign, and there were multiple signs put up, and I thought we were going to work on discussion about whether or not there'd be any kiosk or any other posting, and we hadn't talked about that.
Right. It says the new sign could be put up, but it would replace the old one. But instead, 2 new ones were put up, and the old one stayed. And then if they want to put up a kiosk, to come back with more details. And I've made a suggestion that we write a letter from the commission or from the town and send it to the neighbors in the vicinities of the end of Maple Road, the end of Hemlock Road, and the end of Woodbine Terrace, to let them know that it is conservation land. It's not supposed to be. There's rules on the books already that there's not supposed to be any dumping or filling on those properties, and then an explanation of why it's bad for the property. And I had drafted a letter and sent it to you last week, Carol, and you said you were going to combine it with a letter that you had been working on. I still think that would be a good idea if the commission would approve something like that, that we could send a letter either. I'd be glad to deliver them to the neighbors. Bill Harmon would like to participate in that too. And if you don't want to do it that way, we can just mail them also.
Well, I took your redraft and kind of tried to shorten it up a little bit so it was not quite as wordy and kept to one page. I also showed you a couple pamphlets, and you thought that the one from DEP would be good to put with a letter. So I guess I'm happy to send it out by mail, but if you want to hand deliver and talk with people, just let me know and I'll print them out. And I don't know if I'll have them done by tomorrow, but I could see how that goes.
Marilyn,
What does the commission want to do on that?
let me hear what Marilyn has to say. Unmute yourself, Marilyn.
Thank you. I'm all for that. I was last time and this time too. I'm not all for you walking through the streets and delivering it, not with COVID. I think that, I think it's awkward. I think a gentle letter coming from the commission would be just fine.
Delivered by mail.
Yes, I really think in this time, I just think it would be less awkward and more respectful perhaps of people.
Hey, Peter.
I'm back. Sorry, guys. I had a power outage.
What did Peter say?
I had a power outage. Sorry. I lost everything. So.
Well, I'm glad that you're back. We're just about set. We're just dealing with Jim's final discussion item under our, open forum.
Yep.
We're talking about the dumping around on the Edwards parcel.
Right. Yeah, I heard that. So we're going to mail a letter out?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so Jim and I have a letter that we put together.
Okay. That sounds good.
Should we take a vote on that?
You need votes?
You want to vote?
Okay, we send a letter to the neighbors at the end of Maple, Hemlock, and Woodbine, describing the purpose of the no dumping in conservation land rule.
So can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Jim?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Great. All
Okay.
set.
Now, what about all the signs that are scattered around the property? There's about a dozen no dumping signs, and there's 3 trailhead signs, and there's 1 box that's newly attached to a tree that includes a whole bunch of pamphlets.
Jeez.
Maybe we should sleep on it and think about it.
Yeah, why don't you give us a recommendation?
A gentle one. So
No more
can I
than
just-
1 sign. No more than
Yeah.
1 sign at the end of each road.
well, remember, we're friends, so we
So
can
let's
put it.
keep this up in open forum at our next meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Carl, anything else?
No, we're good.
Motion to adjourn then?
So moved.
Second.
Jim?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
I'm all in. Good night,
All
folks.
right.
All right, see you tomorrow afternoon at 1:15
See you
to
tomorrow.
9.
All right.
All right, see you tomorrow afternoon at